Hey guys, next project has been put off for a while actually. The new fingers for my fixed steady, and I did outline very roughly at the end of my last video about the taper turning attachment. I did outline roughly what I planned, and I've more or less consolidated the plan for this now, so I'm just going to run through fairly quickly as to what I think will work for the sequence of events. We've got the dividing head here, and only using the dividing head because I need a very accurate 90-degree change. So let's come in a bit closer and I'll tell you what I plan to do, and we'll see if that works out or not. I had initially worried about stabilising this end when I mill a slot for the bearing. However, having rethought that, we can avoid that problem, I think. So anyway, stage one is we'll put about a 1/4 inch flat along that. It's about 3¼ inches, 3½ inches. So we'll put the flat on first, and then we'll rotate 90 degrees. And whilst we're still in the centre, which gives me support, and I'll probably, I think we'll drill a 932 hole first, and then I'm waiting for a 932 carbide mill. So we'll drill a hole, then we'll get the mill in and make our slot, and leave this end for removal later. And then, having got that done, we'll take this out of the chuck and keep probably 2½ inches or so. As I think I may have said previously when I talked about this, I'd probably be a little bit wasteful on material. That's got to be cut off, and the 2½ inches or so this end will eventually be lost, but that will enable me to chuck this piece for putting on my 1/2 inch by 20 thread. Once that is done, in fact, let's just back up a bit. Once we've done the slot for the bearing, or prior to that, let me think, always got to get the sequence right. Yes, actually before the bearing slot is made, having done the flat, we'll actually put in the drilling for the bearing pin, and that will save an operation later, because it's very essential that the flat here and the bearing slot are an exact 90 degrees. Alright, so we see where we're going to go with this, and I'm not going to cover all four, obviously, because of the need for the 90, oops, there goes my bearing. The need for the 90-degree accuracy is such that basically each of these will be made one at a time. I can't so far think of an easy repetition method, because once this comes out when the flat has been milled, it's going to be very hard to get back to an accurate position for the 90-degree turn. So it'll be one at a time, and I'll cover aspects of one of them just to give you an idea, and hopefully at the end of it all we'll get the steady set up and do a test run. I'm going to take a nominal 35 thou cut for the flat. Not super critical. Several things aren't super critical. So I've just got some Sharpie marks there as a guide at the moment. And I'll just check the width of that. We're getting closer. Only want about a 1/4 inch wide flat, which does equate to 35 thou. Actually, one reason for the slight change of sound was the tail centre here was not totally solid against the end, so I guess there was a bit of flexing. Anyway, we've got a 1/4 inch there. I might take one more pass just to enlarge that slightly, not very much, and then we'll move on to the bearing slot end, or do a cross drill for a pin. Just cross drilling for the bearing pin. I've already used a centre drill to give me a start. Okay, it's got that, that's for a 1/4 inch pin, and now we've got to rotate 90 degrees and see what we can do with the slot for the bearing. Mind you, at the moment I'll probably have to have a delay on this because I haven't got my 932 carbide mill yet. So there'll probably be a bit of a delay. This is a bit of an aside. I've just, because the mill was taken up with the current setup on my finger production, I messed around with another grind on the Mark II ball turning using the boring head. This is just an experimental cut. At the back here it's rough because the edge of the tool was catching it, but it's actually producing quite a good finish, and the grind, which is not my final one, I've got another one in mind yet, but you can see we've basically done a symmetrical side grind on there. We got some rake on there, and you may not see it, there's a little bit of back relief there. The tip is a very slight radius, and that produces quite a reasonable cut, if you can see it. If it works out well enough on a complete ball test, I'll maybe do a sketch of it, but you can get the general idea. Alright, it was just a quick experiment. It gives me a point, but the other one I want to do is almost the reverse of that. Hard to describe. I'll probably try it sometime. Otherwise I'll get back to my steady fingers. Well, my end mill arrived. I'm just starting some cuts on here to get the slot for the bearing. So I'm going to carry on with that. I'll pick up when I'm nearly through. It may be obvious I drilled a 932 hole initially. This should be about the last cut, I think, if my dial indicator's doing its job. Let's get some of these chips cleaned up. So that should do us all right. I think I said before, I'm sure I did, this end I'm keeping with a centre so I can use that for threading, and then final finishing later will be you can see the bearing's a nice fit in there, and it's just shy of this end, which will be finished with a file. It's not very much, so this end of the forks will be cut off and finished later on. I'm just hoping that there's enough meat in these side forks. I got a fairly large pin, didn't want to go too small on that. And anyway, oh hang on, there's my heater. I had it set on stat and it fired up because it wasn't very warm. Yes, as I was going to say, the stresses on here are basically in compression in that plane, and if the bearings are spinning freely there shouldn't be too much deviation that way. So the strength is in this direction. I'm hoping it'll work alright. So this one is basically done in there. I might set that up for threading to complete the video at this stage, and then do the other three. There's only another 3 to go. And finally, of course, give a demo of it in use if it works. Right, we're set up for some threading here. I've got made a start on this. I put in 15,000 so far. Now one of the problems is, well, not a problem, but I've cut a start relief and a finish relief, which I think are both visible. I'm not sure whether the finish relief may be visible. As I'm not going to get a free end of the thread, I'll have to be a bit careful and possibly go in a thou extra and judge by the thread form so I get a fit, because this is going to be cut off here eventually, and I'll have to use that really for chucking. I could possibly have chucked this end and put a centre down the other end, but I don't know, that would leave me a bit tight for the chuck. I may do that on the others. I'll see when the time comes. I'm running back gear, so I'm not going very quick, and speed it up part the way through. Alright, I won't bore you with the whole of this. I'm getting towards the stage where the cuts are getting smaller, and I think on the last threading I did on the other fingers I went to 32, 33. I'll probably take this to 34, something like that, a little bit extra, I don't mind if the nut's a little bit slack as against too tight. Well, I'm up to 32, and I'm just going to take a spring cut. I think that'll do it. I'll have to find out when I make my cut here to separate it. I think what we'll do next time actually is leave a slightly longer nose on here, because probably 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches would be just about enough for chucking, and then have a centre the other end. Probably waste less material that way. So, well, the indicator's flickering between 31.5 and 32. So I'm just going to clean that crest, the crest up. We'll cut that off and face it, put a chamfer on, and then I'll remove the spare this end. So I'll show you what we've got when I've cleaned that up. I just forgot I had my extra light on top, so the colour may change quite a bit. We'll see. I've just put it back onto the strip light on its own. So here's where we're at. That's one of them finished. Still not sure about the forks, although, as I said, the stresses are in compression. And also this direction, hang on, let's see, this direction here, there's also plenty of strength. There's no apparent spring in there. I don't think they'll be struggling too much. And the thread, I took that, I just wire brushed it to clean it up a little bit. And the thread is fine. Not much slop in that nut. The nuts tend to be a bit slack tolerance these days. So the nut's alright. And then the bearing, put the bearing in. I've just got a spare piece of quarter. Alright. And that's spinning pretty free. I've only got a small projection. I don't see any reason to have the pin much further forward than that. I've probably milled a bit further back than I needed to, because of course the circumference of the bearing is less than the full depth that I cut to. It's no big deal. I'll probably make the others the same. Anyway, there's number one, so I'm going to call it a day. That's the basic setup to get to one of them, and the other three I will do when I get to them. And if I get all four done, I will set the thing up and we'll try it out and see if it's any good. So anyway, there we are for now. Thanks for watching.